Hi everyone, it's James here. How are you all doing? Welcome to another video. This is going to be a contest entry for Richard McCook, and it's a very straightforward idea. It's just a 6-track sampler of a favourite artist. Lots of people jumping on this. I think people have been really enjoying it. It's just a great opportunity to talk about some favourite music and artists from your collection. So that's what I'm going to do today. So just a quick shout out for Richard. He's been making videos for quite some time now. I think he's the hardest working man in show business, in the VC. I think he's made something like 40 videos since the lockdown started. Absolutely prolific. He's a force of nature. Anybody that's seen his rankings videos knows what high quality entertainment Richard pumps out on virtually on a daily basis. He's doing ever so well, and I always tune in for his videos, and we become good friends. We talk a lot on Facebook and stuff like that. So Richard, I'm honoured to enter your contest. So the artist that I'm going to look at is Stevie Wonder, who put out a series of really great records in the 1970s. He had this incredible purple patch. He's just one of those artists, think of people like, like Prince in the 80s, Elton John in the 1970s as well. There are certain artists who just, at a certain stage in their career, they just hit their stride. And Stevie Wonder just had this amazing period. He still carried on making good music after that, but I'm going to just focus down on that great, rich 1970s period when Stevie really could do no wrong. He'd been this kind of child wonder of the 1960s. He'd been a bongo player and a keyboard player, and he'd started to branch out into doing his own songs. But something happened in the 70s. He got into his stride. He became a great advocate for the synthesizer and for the clavinet and all these amazing keyboard instruments, which really started to take off in the 1970s. And his music is coloured with this it's a kind of rich, vibrant, rainbow-hued mix of just amazing textures and sounds. And I think he thought orchestrally. He had an arranger's mind, I think, and he was able to harness all this new technology and make something that was very considered and almost like a mosaic. Everything had its place. It was just a kind of vortex of beautiful sound. And when you listen to those classic Stevie records, it's just like sinking into a jacuzzi of warm analog, kind of gurgling keyboards and just beautiful textures. Also, he was a great musician as well. He had an amazing harmonic sense. If you look at some chord charts for his songs, all the suspended chords and augmented and diminished chords, he was a really instinctive musician. It just seemed to sort of pour out of him in this kind of molten flow. But he was also technically very accomplished. Obviously, he was blind. No idea if that actually affected his talents, but he clearly had amazing ears. And everything about his musicianship just, I got into Stevie Wonder in the 1990s when I was learning to be a drummer, and his drumming just absolutely blew my mind when I heard it, because it's so sort of loose and funky, and it's just got great feel. Now there's quite a few different Stevie Wonders. He had lots of different sides to his musical character. There was the funky Stevie, there was, which is best known on tracks like Superstition. There was the kind of lover boy Stevie, who did great love songs. There was the politically engaged Stevie, who did lots of quite hard-hitting political songs trying to reflect what was going on in the 1970s. Obviously, he was very into Black Power and liberation for African American people. There was the psychedelic Stevie, there was the slow Stevie, the fast Stevie. He just covered all bases, and he did sort of gospel flavoured stuff, soul, funk, and there was something about his records which was just unique. I think even more so than people like Curtis Mayfield, who was great, and all those people who came up in the 1970s. There was Sly Stone, there was Curtis. But there was something unique about Stevie's twist on it. And I think he had a pop sensibility. That's what it was. I think he was easily the most pop orientated. Paul McCartney was a big fan of his, and you can hear that in some of Paul's work in the 1970s on some of the Wings albums. Take a song like Arrow Through Me from the Back to the Egg album. It's got Stevie Wonder written all over it. Or even a song like She's My Baby off Wings at the Speed of Sound, which has got that kind of funky keyboard sound in it. He just crossed over beautifully into the pop market, and obviously his singles were all absolutely massive. Now, Richard is not going to allow us to include any singles, so he wants this 6-track compilation to be deep cuts only, album tracks. So having done that big intro, I'm not going to take too long over my actual song selection now. I'll do the playlist down below. It might well be that you know these songs already, but you can check them out. You don't need me to describe them in depth. So we're going to start off with the Music of My Mind album, which was 1972. The 2 singles which came from this were Keep On Running and Superwoman. But from this album, I'm going to go with, I thought we needed a funky track, because we're not going to be allowed to have Superstition, which was a single. So we'll go for the opening track from this album, which is called Love Having You Around, which is just a great, funky, clavinet orientated Stevie track. It's just, it chugs along, it's 7 minutes, you know. Stevie was fond of doing these big long tracks that just went on and on and on, and that one has got a real compulsive groove to it. So, number 1, Love Having You Around, we'll get the compilation off to a rollicking good start. Okay, so next we're going to go to 1972 and the Talking Book album, and the 2 singles from this were both absolutely huge. You Are the Sunshine of My Life and Superstition, which is, to the person on the street, is probably the song which is most associated with Stevie. Now from this record, I'm going to go with his more meditative and slow, kind of smouldering kind of songwriting style, and we'll go with a song called Blame It on the Sun, which is a very low-key, melancholy, kind of minor key pop song. It's got a kind of resigned, world-weary air to it, which people who sort of only know the greatest hits of Stevie Wonder possibly don't know he had this side, you know, this kind of introverted, melancholy side that was, it was almost like Van Morrison sometimes, you know. It had a sort of spiritual yearning quality to it, and that track, it's just absolutely beautiful. Okay, so moving to 1973 and the great album Inner Visions, and the singles from this album were Living in the City, Higher Ground, Don't You Worry, and He's Mr. Know-It-All. So this album did garner quite a few hit singles, but we're not allowed to have those. So I'm going to go with the opening track, which is one of the great all-time opening songs from an album of all time, and it's the song Too High, which I'd say probably is one of Stevie's more kind of almost psych-orientated records. It's got kind of phasing in it, and it's got that lovely warm, luxurious kind of analogue sound to it, but it's ever so slightly trippy. It's just a brilliant album opener. So Too High is going to be our track number 3. Right, so now we go to the next album, 1974, and this is Fulfillingness's last finale. There it is. And this record had a couple of singles. It had You Haven't Done Nothing and the brilliant up-tempo Boogie on Reggae Woman. Now for this record, I'm going to choose 2 songs for this from this record, because I couldn't choose between them. And even though it's only going to leave me 1 song left for the final monumental album, I couldn't resist having 2. So the 2 songs we're going to have from this are Too Shy to Say, which is the I think it's the 4th song on side 1, and it's an example of one of Stevie's very slow, beautiful, absolutely beautiful ballads. You know, you just put the light out and lie down on the floor and listen to this. He sings it in this very slow sort of legato style, and it's got pedal steel guitar in it, which is kind of melting in the background like a sort of chocolate fondant pedal steel guitar just drenched in reverb, and it's just gorgeous. It's the most gorgeous sounding song you've ever heard. And then a bit later on in the record, on the same side, at the end of side 1, you've got the song Creeping, which I think might have been co-written, or it's certainly co-sung by his wife Sarita. Let's have a look and see if I'm right there. No, it's not actually. No, she does appear on this record, I think, or she appears on some of his stuff, but she's not on that one. But there's somebody singing backing vocals on there. Let's have a look and see who it is. Oh, right, okay, so we learn something new every day. This song is co-sung by Minnie Riperton. Didn't know that. It's a great song. It's a real slow burner, kind of slow grooving track. Again, it's very melancholy. It's got a downbeat feel to it. Like I said, Stevie is well known for his upbeat, toe-tapping, funky kind of tunes, but he had this other side to him. He'd actually had quite a serious accident just prior to this record being made. He had a car accident where he'd been following a truck full of logs, and the logs had crashed into the car that he was in, and he'd sustained quite serious head injuries. And I think it brought out a kind of spiritual awakening in him, and his music started to take on a more spiritual kind of slant or sound, which I think had always been there, but it was certainly starting to become more pronounced. Okay, so we're 5 tracks in, so there's only 1 track left, and just to be perverse, I'm going to end our little 6-track sampler with an opening song again. And this is the opening song from this record. This is Songs in the Key of Life, which came out in 1976. The singles were Sir Duke, I Wish, Knocks Me Off My Feet, and Pastime Paradise. But the song we're going to have to finish our 6-track sampler is Love's in Need of Love Today, which is the opening song on this record. And it's a sort of slow burning song again, really beautiful, kind of just layer upon layer upon layer of just beautifully arranged keyboards and organs, and it's just, like I said, it's like sinking into a warm jacuzzi of music. It's absolutely fantastic. And I think the fact that he starts the record with it, it's so cool, because it's like, God, how on earth do you follow that, you know? But then he goes on with Have a Talk with God, Village Ghetto Land, Sir Duke, you know, I mean, just such a fantastic album. But I thought it would be quite good fun to end with that song, because it is, even though he does follow the song on that record with all those other great songs, I think for the purposes of our 6-track sampler, it's quite good to sort of end with a song that leaves you going, wow, you know, try and follow that, Stevie. So there we go, 6 songs, Stevie Wonder, one of the great artists of the 1970s and of all time. And I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks, Richard. Check out Richard's channel. I shall put the link down below, and I'll see you all soon. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.